This is Betsy. Thomas, what's going on with your research on China?
Well, Betsy, that's a really good question, and it's not just myself researching it. Many of us are researching this because when you want to go deep, China is about as deep as you can go. You can go back in history to India, at Varanasi. They've been doing the same thing since 4000 BC. So for 6,000 years, things have been going on there. But if you go back to China, you go back to even more ancient things. So no one's ever defeated China.
Well, but you guys are working on a piece on China?
Well, we're trying to see.
I
can give you a general overview of the way that the consensus is going, but we need to get down to the specifics so that once we point this out, let's just say we can start with the idea that Henry Kissinger has turned against America and is touting only China. He always goes with the winners, people think. But wait, George Soros always goes with the winner, and he voted his $1 billion against Trump and lost. Matter of fact, he's losing billions all the time. He's being called out all the time. The Rockefellers are backing off. The Rothschilds are backing off. The offshore accounts are being closed down, all because of the Trump effect. The Trilateralists, the Bilderbergers, they're all, the CFR, the Council on Foreign Relations, they don't know what to do. The central banks even.
We've got them on the run.
And so when you're talking about Trump and China, the reason we have to address China is what he just did with China. No one, I dare anyone except for the invasion of Japan, to tell us any time that someone has effectively conquered China or even made that gigantic dinosaur move quickly or back up. They never back up. They are the biggest force on the face of the earth to deal with, and they're total communists. And this is a country who from one day to the next says, no more cats. And the next day, all cats are dead in the country because the council decided that the cats eat food and the people need the food. Or they decide only one child per family, and the Chinese want a boy child. So this caused almost all the girls being born to simply be put out in the cold and die. This is a country beyond your imagination. 20 million Tibetans were mercilessly and ruthlessly killed in their monasteries. Some of the oldest and most profound things on the face of the earth were burnt to the ground. They left Lhasa, where they installed a fake Dalai Lama, and now they have a super fast train going there so people can go there as a tourist site. But here's what happens in China. Nobody goes. They build fantastic roads and they build cars and they try to look like America, and then the Chinese people don't want to get in a car and they're not going on those roads. They build cities and places where there's nobody, and they send people there, and the people go off in the mountains and live. They don't want to live in the cities. They build gigantic malls and nobody comes to shop. You see, they've skipped over the stages of capitalism. They're trying to go from communism to capitalism. And here's what happens in China. When they started their own stock market, and these are the details we need to actually fill out this article, four of their top investors made a ton of money on their stock market, as happens in capitalism by just sheer accident, really. They killed them. That's who you're dealing with. So Trump, before he went to the United Nations, had already planned on further sanctions on Korea and had already written the speech that said no more support to anyone who supports North Korea in any substantial way. Hello, China is the number one support of North Korea. And they need them right now because we aren't buying their Walmart goods, their Kmarts and their Chinese goods, which are actually made in Taiwan. We're not buying them anymore. China took over Taiwan, in case you didn't notice. That's who actually provides the goods, is Taiwan. But the point is China is now Taiwan, and we aren't buying it, and the ships aren't coming over from China to America. And now they want to tell us things like China is, and the BRICS, along with the Russians and India and South America and who I'm missing, Brazil, they want to basically set up a new world order. They want to displace the UN because the UN keeps mentioning very inconvenient things, both to Russia and China, about morality, ethics, freedom of religion, and not putting women down, and so on and so forth. All the things that they do the worst. China's the largest slave trader on the face of the earth. So what are we going to do with China? What did Trump do? He says, if you support North Korea, that's it. No more U.S. support. People want to think that Trump is not going to do what Trump says he's going to do. He just took the entire Chinese trade and said, F you to them.
Because what people, hey, if you're a manufacturing company, you're a producing company, you need a country that is a consumer.
Especially when your people don't want those goods. They don't want refrigerators. They don't
right.
want cars. They don't want high-speed freeways.
They need us as much as we need them.
Oh, much more. They're nothing without us. They're following. They're mimicking us. They stole our technology by reverse engineering, and now they have all our technology. They built all of our microchips, and so all of our military has Chinese microchips in them that have in-day programs. They can simply push a button and our missiles won't work. Okay, so the point is, China's our worst enemy that there ever could be, and anyone who thinks otherwise also believes Henry Kissinger is a good person, or that Dick Cheney should be lauded as an excellent vice president of the United States of America. No, Trump said to them, before he knew what they were going to say, and I'll say that in a second, Trump said to the whole friggin' world, if you give North Korea anything else anymore, you're our enemy. We are going to put on sanctions, not like a silly little Obama sanctions, which didn't even really get put into effect, and which he lifted before he had congressional approval or anybody else's approval. Obama lifted the sanctions on Iran. And let's remember, we gave North Korea, and so did Russia, we gave them $4.5 billion to develop the nuclear program. Russia gave them much more than that to get them started. So, who's the enemy here? North Korea, as somebody said the other day, is like the crazy uncle you pull out of the closet to do crazy things, then you put them back in when you want the crazy stuff to stop. That's what they are. South Korea has already said they've sent the death squads to kill Kim Jong-un.
I was shocked. You told me that earlier. I was like shocked.
No, they're going to kill him.
Yes, that's it. Game over.
Game over. He's killing all his people. They're starving. They don't have fresh water. But the previous sanctions, which became... You don't shoot missiles over sovereign countries. You shoot them maybe out into the water, in international waters, but you don't shoot ICBMs over Japan and not expect the world to get upset. But look, China didn't get upset. Trump threatened them and they did nothing. They go to the UN and Trump just said, forget China. I'm in control. I know that if we don't buy their goods,
they're tanked.
They're more than tanked. They have civil war.
That's right. And the thing is so many other countries are having economic problems just as America is right now. So consumers on a whole are buying fewer goods, which has got to be impacting China's economy right now.
China gutted us by selling us back our bonds as a threat. So did Saudi Arabia. So did India. So did all the countries
so
they did.
We'll go, okay, so we won't buy your stuff.
No, we turned around and we made fiat dollars, $4.5 trillion and bought those stocks instantaneously. The second that China put up the threatened stocks, we bought them in less than a second.
Can you believe?
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I can't say that. Those were off-book purchases that are not on the books of the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve got $4.5 trillion and it disappeared in a matter of days when the bonds from those countries were bought by an anonymous source.
Listen, do these countries realize that all that happens is they go to the press and they print this paper? And then that's what they're getting?
Well, this is where this conversation's going, Betsy.
Okay. All right.
This is the big deal, and this is the reason we have to nail this, because we need to let everybody know the opposite of what Kissinger and his Council on Foreign Relations and all those groups all talk about. The fact that America's dominance stays dominance, according to Kissinger, let me just spell this out for you, is because of the clash of nations for the nations that are not at our level. There's only one nation in the world, and that is America. Everyone else is below us, and we have to keep a clash of nations going on, or we will not continue to have dominance. That has been our foreign policy since Henry Kissinger came to control American foreign policy.
That way, the military-industrial complex has got plenty of customers all the time.
Oh, nonstop, because they service both sides. Remember, Raytheon
Right.
builds the missiles for Russia and America.
Right.
So does Lockheed Martin. So does all of them. Don't get me started.
And
on
look,
those
if
guys.
you're listening to this and you're in China, average American people, we don't want this either. We're being run by the central bankers, the deep state, the military industrial complex. It's only going to change when people like Thomas and Betsy and you out there, that we don't let this happen. Wherever you can make a difference in your local, your state communities, even at a national level, just say no.
I know people who lost money on fake Chinese gold mines. Now that's where I'm going with this next. But let's look at the terrible wound of China, which has never scabbed over. And China hates us, and this is the reason China would like to kill all of us. This is the reason China puts radioactive material in Graco products for children, in the plastic of your strollers, and all the Graco products. They are radioactive. You think China cares? Many things. How about the plastic rice from China?
How do you know that? Because, I can see we get a call from Graco that you've said all their products are radioactive. So clear this up for me.
They admitted this. And they had to stop making them, a lot of them from China.
But you said all, so let's just say...
At one point, almost all of the children's products coming from China that were made of plastic, they were radioactive, and if they were painted with lead paint. I thought everyone knew that.
I know, but I have to be careful, and I want to make sure you qualify this all thing, because we know how you are, Thomas.
Yes, okay. Sorry, I got superlative on you there.
Yes.
So, when Japan went in and took over China. Now imagine, Japan's this little, tiny little, itsy-bitsy island, and it went in and kicked China's butt for the first time in history. China was defeated. What did Japan do? Took all of China's gold. This is World War II, folks. Who defeated Japan? We did. Where did the gold go? The CIA got it. It's called the Yamashita Gold, after their great general, Yamashita. Now, China is really mad about that because they had huge gold reserves. Nobody even knows how big the Yamashita gold reserve is, but it's so big that it's thousands of tons, at least numerous thousands of tons. Let's just say that, I'm being as conservative as I can be. So China wants that gold back. Now, where are they going to get the gold? Here's what happened. After George Bush Sr. left the presidency, he joined Barrick Gold, a CIA front. The gold that came onto the market was the CIA Yamashita gold. So China got to buy back some of its gold at a high price. And that's where China got the gold that it has now. We also stole the Russian gold, both from the USSR and from Russia. And we also, through the Germans stole the French gold. They had one of the largest gold reserves. So the CIA, through Allen Dulles, came in possession of a huge amount of gold. So Russia wants to get back into the market. Russia wants to control the market. When it says one belt, one world, that means the Chinese New World Order. China could squish Russia. If there was a battle between China and Russia, who do you think would win? That's the reason they're out doing war games right now. They've been doing war games now for years because they have to be best of friends because they're the two biggest forces on the earth. If they go to battle, both their countries will be decimated. Civil war will happen and other countries will take over them, and China would never do that. China's never been defeated. They absorb. They do not go out and war against others usually. They absorb them. So they want their gold back. So now, they got tricked because China has a central bank, their own state central bank, not a Rothschild Western-styled central bank. Russia, same thing. Okay, those central banks want to get into the International Monetary Fund. The International Monetary Fund is a game. It's a game where they take the money from the World Bank and they manipulate it and they give huge loans, and then people default on the loans all the time. Well, the reason they default on the loans is because they're not really loans. They are American corporations coming in and taking over. American bankers and brokers and in the military industrial complex and the people stealing the oil and the gold, blah, blah. They come in, they take over, they get a piece of the pie, and they call that developmental aid. That's the World Bank. And then they have the trick. These are UN associates, right? The International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the World Trade Organization, and subsequently the Bank for International Settlements. Because the reason none of it's ever going to work with China is they don't have a Bank for International Settlements. The most corrupt organization for finances internationally on the face of the earth. And Russia doesn't have it either. So they tried to appease both Russia and China, said, oh, please let us come into the IMF. We're going to abide by the World Bank's rules. We're going to act nice at the United Nations. And if you bring in our technology, because remember, Obama and Hillary brought in entire Silicon Valley to Russia. China's waiting for that to happen. So they stole it first. So what would be the point of taking it there? China stole the secrets of Silicon Valley. Russia was given it by Hillary, right? So then they said, well, let's play this game. Russia's even said, let's join the NATO. Oh, brilliant idea. So they won't join the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, because they know it's crooked. Matter of fact, a Russian spy set it up. What was his name? His last name was White. He's the man who set up the IMF. He's the man who helped set up the United Nations, one of the most corrupt financiers of all times. He helped set up the central bank. Anyway, the point is, a Russian spy set up the IMF. So Russia knew from the beginning that it was corrupt. They have a thing called special drawing rights. Everyone now says, that's the new currency, special drawing rights. So they tricked Russia and they tricked China into coming into the IMF, and they wanted to become the reserve currency. So the IMF said, well, you'd need a gold-backed currency if you really want to become a reserve currency of the IMF. Well, the other currencies aren't gold-backed. American, British, they're not gold-backed. So they tricked them. So they went out and they bought a bunch of gold, okay? That was the gold, probably the CIA gold from Barrick
That they
Gold.
stole from them
which
originally.
we stole from them to begin with.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so they thought they were going to get... Remember when everybody said, oh my God, if China becomes a reserve currency, the whole world is going to self-destruct. All financial systems will collapse. Remember when they said...
I remember that.
When China starts its own stock market, it's taken over the world. When China starts now, are they yelling? China is going to take over the petrodollar because it's going to have a gold-backed yuan.
Yeah, right.
Let me explain how that happened.
And let me not interrupt you, or the men will write comments that I interrupted you.
This is very tricky, okay? If you know this, you sit back at night and you can sleep. If you don't, you're worried for the whole world because you're worried about the suffering of the world. It comes down to a few people. That's what we said in our last broadcast. A few people can change the world with an ideology. Look at Engels, look at Marx, look at Lenin, look at Trotsky, look at Hitler, look at George Washington, look at Thomas Jefferson, look at Benjamin Franklin, look at Einstein. Look at Marie Curie, look at Mother Teresa, look at the Holy Mother. Let's remember
the Dalai Lama. You forgot the Dalai Lama.
And the Dalai Lama, okay. My friend, the Dalai Lama.
All right, look,
Chinrezig.
Thomas, come on, get back on the track.
Okay, so China gets tricked into trying to act like they're going to appease the Bank for International Settlements, the World Bank, the World Trade Organization. Remember, who brought China into the World Trade Organization? The Clintons, because they're on Walmart, and Walmart got Taiwan's deals, and every time you went to Walmart, you patted the gold pockets of the Clintons. Sorry, that's how that works. We didn't give them technology, they stole it. That's the reason they hacked us up until recently when Silicon Valley made a deal with them saying, we will just give you the technology, please don't hack us anymore. And that's what happened, folks. That's the reason China didn't meet with the Department of Defense, the National Security Agency, the CIA. Heck no. China met with Silicon Valley and made a deal to stop hacking us. You see? Why? Because we gave them the technology. Same thing Hillary did with Russia. So they try to get in the IMF. We got them all set up. The whole world's going to collapse. China thinks it's taken over with Russia because of BRICS. They're all set. Nothing happened. They sold back their bonds. They got so mad. Nothing happened. They're trying to take over the currency through this new currency bid. Nothing's going to happen because of the following. The gold that they just manifested, which they say appeared on their markets in Shanghai, 7,000 tons of gold. They don't know. They don't know. It's between 7 and 10,000 tons of gold they bought on their open commodities markets in Shanghai. Really? Can anybody tell us who they bought it from? Can you show me the purchase order? Can you show me that it wasn't tungsten? Which there is a huge amount of fake gold bars and even silver, but gold especially, and especially the larger it gets, that are from China right now, which are fake because people don't drill into it and do the test. They have learned to fake gold so much, and they thick plate everything now. Very, very thick plates, so that when you do the initial test and you scrape it off, it's as gold as can be. You have to drill through it to even prove it, okay? So somehow China... Now let me get this, let me just lay it out for you people. I know you can listen to all these economists, and you're not going to hear what I'm about to tell you because I am a simpleton. I thank heavens that Betsy and her crowd and many of the Anonymous Patriots are great economists, literally with degrees in it. I know nothing about economy, but I do know people, and I'm telling you what's happening, and I know history, and I'm telling you this is what's happening. The gold-backed Chinese yuan is backed with fake gold. They will never allow a valuation of it. And because they don't understand capitalism, that when capitalists get pushed into the corner, you think anybody has ever gone and tested the gold at the Rothschild gold vaults? Never. Do you think they've ever checked the gold at Barrick? Never. But do you think they'll check? Oh, they went to Fort Knox recently, didn't they?
Oh, no!
They checked the
Gold.
gold.
It's all there.
It's all there.
there.
He put his tongue on one of the bars and he
Yeah.
says, "That's gold. I can taste it.
Yeah, it's good.
Through and through." Matter of fact, I know that all 13 of these vaults are just filled with this stuff. Come on, let's go to lunch.
They actually think we're that stupid out here, Thomas.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I told you that was a complete fake thing.
Yeah, okay.
And now I realize why. Because that was the U.S. saying our 8,000...
Ours is here. Check.
Our 8,000 pounds, 8,000 tons of gold in Fort Knox is all there. And then down at the bottom of the article it says, except for the money that is held by the New York Fed, by the New York Bank.
Honey, nobody can hear you when you've got your hands.
This is a secret.
Okay, but don't put your hands on your
You want to know where the real gold is?
Where?
The real gold is in
Oh, I know,
Kansas
really.
City.
Yeah.
It's in Fort Knox.
Uh-huh.
And it's in 3 vaults in New York.
Wait a minute.
One of the vaults is, and another vault in Washington, D.C., but the big vaults are in New York, and that's the Fed's vault, and that's the New York Bank, or what's the New York Central Bank, right? They're the ones who move the money around fictitiously and actually put it on boats and ship it and all this stuff. Why? Because they work with the CIA. We don't know how much gold we have. No one's ever valuated, no one's ever put the gold out on the table and counted and let it be tested. It was up to the Rothschilds for what? Decades. This only changed recently when the head of the New York Stock Exchange, ICE, Intercontinental Exchange, got the rights, and now they've sold the rights to some computer company. So now one guy sitting at a computer determines gold and silver now and LIBOR rates. Isn't that amazing? Because the biggest people in the world who controlled it and have been charged billions of dollars for manipulating it, those people and those banks aren't allowed to touch it anymore because they do this all the time and they never go to jail. They pay huge amounts. And by the way, Comey and Mueller have been involved with these exact type of gold escapades with HSBC and other groups, hedge funds and other things. So the point is that nobody knows what the gold is. China wants to play the game that they think they can counterfeit gold, tell people they got 10,000, that would make them have as much as 12,000 tons of gold in China as what they call their gold reserve. But now here's what they don't get. What's the volume of their currency? And since their currency isn't precious metal, then it's fiat. So are we going to believe that somewhere in China is a bunch of gold that supports their fiat currency? Well, that would be like those of us who believe that Fort Knox is empty and that the gold has been used shifting around from central bank to central bank as valuation for assets so that they can, in fact, get more money. Because if you're holding the money, they come and they see the money, they'll loan you money. You ship that money to another bank, they hold it, they get a loan. You
Or they lease the gold to each other.
It's called leasing. I'm just making it as simple as I can be for people, okay?
Sorry.
And so when you laugh, you don't believe, I don't know, Betsy, how could you not believe that the other 12 rooms at the Mint, at the Fort Knox are not filled with absolutely true 99.9% 24 karat gold? I just don't understand how you could doubt our government. Anyway, the gold escapades, we could go into that, but China's trying to play this game. So now they come out, they said, this is totally ridiculous. And this explains why so many of these things is going on. I didn't know this, but as I say it, you're going to know it because it's this simple. Why do you think the biggest, most corrupt financier in America, Betsy, who would that be?
George Soros.
Well, he didn't live in America because he'd be arrested.
Oh, okay. Oh, Jamie Dimon?
Why do you think the biggest corrupt
You know, he's back on there again today, dissing Bitcoin again.
Did you see, though, that he's already been busted by McAfee and others who
Yeah.
said, forget
Yeah.
that. He went on, and this is manipulation of a currency. He's showing it can be manipulated, because when he said he was against it here, and Chase, J.P. Morgan, Chase Manhattan Bank, led by Jamie Dimon, who is an idiot, he tried to crash Bitcoin. Now, why did he try to trash Bitcoin? Because in Germany he was buying Bitcoin. And he actually said in the interview, do you think that I would not be doing this and buying short in line in relationship to Bitcoin if I wasn't telling the truth? In other words, he says, I am lying because right now I'm buying Bitcoin in Germany.
But listen, they don't know that down here at our level, we got their game. We know what they're up to. They really don't know that we know.
They don't, and China is slow.
You've got
China
James
is slow to
Comey
catch
out
on.
there giving speeches at a college campus, and they're booing him. Doesn't he understand we know his game?
Everybody knows he's a perjurer that listened to his
Right.
words. He is a liar. So, would we believe Jamie Dimon? Well, he can control the market. No, he can't. He was doing that to see if he could control the market. Today we'll find out if he can control it in the future. And it didn't control the market because remember, and think about this, Betsy, a few weeks before, China came out and said, we forbid all ICOs.
Right.
And when they did that, they put the noose around their neck. Because they said what? 2 weeks later,
It's called
we're
going to
starting
South-
our own ICO.
Right. But then all this business went over to South Korea.
But don't you get it? That's not a free market. If you can only buy Chinese Bitcoin, or whatever they're going to call it, Chinese bit currency, if you buy only blockchain coin that is distributed by China, then you have to be in the Chinese system 100%, and their system is arbitrary. It is capricious. It's just all over the place. They kill people who make big profits on their stock market. They fake their gold. They create industries that don't exist. They lie about gold mines. They split stock that doesn't even exist. These are all real things. Anyone who's ever dealt with China knows nothing ever goes in China that comes out. If you want to do cars in China, you have to take your people over there and build it under their auspices. And this is what you may not know. China doesn't let loose of anything, and that's why they didn't let loose of Taiwan. So they are going to have their own cryptocurrency, and they're not going to allow Russian cryptocurrency or any other. Why? Because they know it works. Even the U.S. Treasury has said that they're going to start a cryptocurrency. Every country is now looking at a cryptocurrency. And the reason for that is because cryptocurrency is now being discussed as a world currency. But there has to be, first off, countries that work together and don't lie to each other like China lies to us. So when Trump said to Russia, I hate to use this word, but screw you, forget you, if you give anything to North Korea, we don't buy nothing from you. What happened? China not only said that they're not going to give Korea anything, they have completely supported our sanctions. And remember that a week before, they were shooting off their own ICBMs from their surface-to-air missiles from their all over the place, from submarines and everywhere else, showing North Korea that they will not stand for their nonsense. So basically, they got a loose rogue nutcase on their hands in North Korea that was an agent of China, but now he's going to have to be assassinated. And when that's done, then it's over because. Unfortunately, what can really happen is a complete transformation. We see the Trump effect again. North Korea could literally become united with South Korea because of Trump here. And we see this because we see all the response from the UN. The country said, we love Trump. The country said, we won't even come to Merkel's talk. We won't come to Macron's talk. We won't come to any of you stupid European leaders who support the migration. We're not coming to any of your talks because you're not the future. The future is nationalism. The future is not globalism. Globalism has failed, and even our own 17 U.S. intelligence agency report called The Paradox of Progress says globalism at this moment has come to a screeching halt. And now, they've announced it, and this is a pronouncement.
We're winning.
You can look this up. folks. You can read it.
Yep.
I'm going to quote it to you over and over
They're
again.
just scrambling now to cover their own butts.
And they said that Hillary could have won if she would have done one thing, and then there was one person who was an insider who took them up on that, because this report...
Oh, wait a minute. You're going to tell Hillary what really happened?
Yes.
Okay.
What really happened is the following. This report was written by James Clapper, but it was not actually released until 2017, but all the research was done ahead of time. And it was shared with Hillary Clinton, and it was shared with others, and some of them shared it with Trump. And when Trump saw the content of this report, he said, holy crap, I can win, because I am a nationalist. I am a populist. I am independent. I am against Islamic fascism.
Right.
Let's remember, Antifa, pack up you and your guns and go to Syria, because there's a lot of fascists there. They're called Islamic terrorists, okay? So there's a lot of fascists you can fight against. Go to Ukraine, because they're filled with fascists. The original Nazis still live in Ukraine. Don't forget that. And Joe Biden was standing on their stage and literally did a Nazi salute to the man who President Trump just shook his hand yesterday. Poroshenko is a complete Nazi. They're the ones who gave all the fake information about Manafort, about the dossier, about Alexander Chalupa, all this stuff. The Atlantic Council. That's the reason that they're balancing with NATO, and Russia's ready to say, I want to become a member of NATO.
What were we talking about?
We were talking about China.
Okay.
And anytime you talk about China, you have to talk about the whole world.
Right.
Because China's everywhere.
But we're talking about winning. The globalists are winning, and now Clapper had this report, and Trump read it and said, oh my gosh, I can win. What was the thing that Hillary should have done to have her win?
Well, if I tell you this, you know what happens, right, Betsy?
You have to, what?
This is a top secret.
Okay, top secret.
Umbra.
Okay.
Which is our top secret word in the conclave. I'll tell you this, but you got to make sure that nobody else hears.
All right. Shh.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Bernie Sanders happened. Bernie read the report. It said, if the Democrats are to win, they must become socialists. Leaning left is not good enough. Liberal democracy, liberal Democrats are not strong enough. You must go full to the left. You must go socialism. And so now Bernie, who used to stand against socialism and say that a universal payer or that universal health care would bankrupt America, now says it's the only thing that can happen. He has simply read that report and announced himself as a socialist, running as a socialist, and look, he took half the Democrats.
And
he would have won. Matter of fact, he won the primary.
And Hillary
Let's not forget
was stuck
that.
in the middle. She couldn't move that far left, and she couldn't go right.
She couldn't go to socialism, because then that would mean that the pay to play for her Secretary of State promises would not be able to manifest. She had promised chaos. She also, I always laugh when I say this, but I'm halfway serious. When you donated to the Clinton Foundation, she gave you the password to her server in her basement, okay, and in her bathroom. She gave you the password.
You didn't need it. If you're a good hacker, you just got in.
That's correct. But she gave you the password in case you needed it.
Okay.
And Huma would have let you in anyway, as you full well know. And if you can't go in through him, Anthony was always available for any foreign agent that needed to get in through the Muslim Brotherhood doorway of Huma through Hillary Clinton. And these things are not investigated. Somehow Hillary, Huma, Cheryl, and all of them were exonerated of any crime before they were even investigated, before they were spoken to, and their devices were destroyed. All of those are crimes. So we can talk about China all we want, but here in America, China is kind of like Russia. What did Russia used to say? You heard this when you were in school. They're going to take over America without ever shooting one single bullet.
It's so interesting. I love listening to you talk about this, Thomas, because you tell the story as though it's a spy thriller. You tell us a story. And so news people don't. They give you bits and they don't pull it together. So I love this.
One of the funny things, the Chinese gold that just manifested out of the blue, they're calling it the Yamashita gold.
Oh, really?
The Chinese have not forgotten. We have forgotten. We forgot that it was Ferdinand Marcos who found the gold in the Philippines. Well, he didn't find it. Actually, Alan Dulles sent certain agents to the Philippines where he knew it had been put in caves very quickly by the Japanese when they were being overrun. So the Philippines ended up being the place where this gold was held, and we stole it from them. Then they put it in Switzerland, and then that gold was won back. And they, because of the U.S. and the federal agencies, The UBS had to give a lot of the gold back to the Marcos, give a lot of the gold back to the Germans, and it's just a mess. If you follow the gold, you're going to follow a three-ring circus. It's like a bunch of clowns and a 9 clowns and an elephant, I think they call it. So, folks, when we talk about China, China is no one's friend. China is no friend of Russia or India or anyone else. China is only out for itself. It is a truly communist country. Their oligarchs have not become capitalists because they haven't even been exposed to it. They haven't been allowed to be exposed to it. The second that they can be exposed, I do believe that we may be even able, from the West, to corrupt the soul of the Chinese, which has been pretty much incorruptible since the beginning of time. Almost every invention you can name in the modern world that came out of the past of anything 200 years ago or before comes from China. Algebra, the zero, mathematics, it doesn't, name it. Chinese medicine is so far beyond us, they can use one needle and anesthetize you. We have to kill people with anesthesia. No, China has many, many secrets, and I love China. Matter of fact, of all the countries in the world, China and India are right there, and they're ready to go to nuclear war with each other over a road.
Oh, that got you all worked up yesterday. Yes, I remember this.
The other day, I had in the conclave, a month ago, people come and freak out that India and China were going to nuclear war because it was all over the news everywhere on one day. And I looked at them and said, "You're out of your mind. There's no such thing." And they said, you're crazy. So I looked at it and read it. This war has been going on since time immemorial. It is a road. One road has been fought over as long as anyone knows between China and India. Are they going to go to nuclear war over this road? No. This road would give China a convenient outlet to the ocean. That's what it's about. India won't let it happen because they know that China never gives anything back. They don't cooperate with anybody. They're a neighbor of China. You can't convince India that China is nice. That's stupid. And anyone who thinks that China hasn't been the source of everything that's happened in that area, whether it be Vietnam or Korea or in Malaysia or Japan, all these things, those are Chinese. I just want to quote one other thing. I've mentioned this before, and this is the epitome of stupidity in America. CrowdStrike was asked to investigate the largest hacking of America. CrowdStrike, it's Dmitry Alperovich, our favorite guy, who needs to have a special cell made just for him. He's going to show up on my front door someday, and I'm going to say, "Dmitry, come in. I want you to look. I want you to look at my computer. I got a problem. I think the Russians are hacking it." And he'll look at me. He'll say, "They are. They are hacking it." Why? Because he always says it's somebody whose footprints he prints. He leaves in computers. That's his job. He leaves those footprints, then he's hired as a company to come in and clear it up. Everybody knows this. Okay?
Talking about China.
I'm ready to go there.
Okay.
When North Korea was blamed for the worst hacking of America, what happened? It was Dmitry Alperovich's CrowdStrike that proclaimed such. It was found out that it was China. And then when China denied it, I don't know who they used, but they centered in and they found the very building that the hacking was coming from. And it was in China. And we tried to attack them, and we weren't very good at it. And so finally, this is what happened. And this is bizarre, but it's true. And this can be looked up. Even the hacking center, they've closed it down now, okay? Because they were using North Korean attributes, North Korean and Russian attributes in China to hack American companies to steal proprietary information. This is well known. This is considered to be the largest hacking of American corporate interests ever. Just so happens we found it on a map. And just about the time we find it on a map, because they actually named exactly where it was, the largest chemical plant in China blows up. Do you remember this?
Yeah, I do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, just conveniently blows up. Mm-hmm. It was within eyesight of where this was. Mm-hmm. And so you say, well, that's a coincidence. Not long after, because this was before the Silicon Valley Agreement of no hacking. Some hacking still continued. And the second or third largest chemical plant in China blew up. And you go, okay, well, now that's getting quite a...
We thought they were using special weapons from outer space.
Wow, people
I remember
have said
we're
that.
chesting this down.
Sure, the accelerated particle beams can blow up a
yeah.
chemical plant without ever becoming visible. That's just... Anybody would know that.
Yeah.
That doesn't take a genius.
Okay,
The
come on, get back on
1,000
track.
points of light were accelerated particle beams during the Reagan time. Hello? Anyway, the point is, then on Japan, the largest depot of American munitions being stored blew up. Out of the blue. Coincidence. Then between somewhere the top 5, another chemical plant in China blows up that's in the top 5 chemical plants in China. Just blows up. Folks, we already went to war with China. And we showed them our superiority, that we have accelerated particle beams on launch platforms. That's the only answer for this. We can't penetrate China with troops on the ground, through the CIA, through assets. No, that's not going to happen. No one has ever penetrated China. It's not going to happen. Okay? So we just simply blew up 3 of their largest chemical plants. They blew up one of our munitions plants. So what?
Okay, and so
then,
what happened?
and then they came on their knees and begged Silicon Valley to please create a peace treaty with them for hacking. And the hacking has pretty much stopped from there. And so when you want to talk about any Russian attributes during the supposed Russian meddling of the presidential election, complete nonsense. High schoolers leave Russian footprints. People have pointed out recently that Trump's visit to the UN made him different. One of the reasons is his strength, his boldness, but also because he's a Christian. And this upsets a lot of people who want globalization. They don't want nationalism. They don't want specific religions. They don't want Christianity. The last thing they want is Christianity. They want a pliable populace. China is a pliable populace. Their communism reaches down into not allowing religion, not allowing anything that isn't state-oriented. Their spiritual development has been so retarded by turning them into more or less a group soul consciousness. They are one group. When you deal with China, you deal with all of China. They are a collective. That country is a collective. That is not true with Russia. That is not true with practically any other country on the face of the earth, except some European countries, perhaps to some degree, or some very, very third world countries. But the point is China is homogeneous. It is consistent. When the head of China says, tomorrow all cats die, all cats die. And if you don't kill the cat, the penalty for stealing a bike in China to this very day is death. When you're in a Chinese prison, they don't give you food. If your family doesn't bring you food, you starve to death. We're not talking about anything that a Westerner can actually understand. It's just like North Korea. They can't understand how North Koreans believe Kim Jong-un, because he's the son of the previous leader, is a divine entity and can do no wrong, and therefore his missile program has to be right. They believe that. It's a given. We in the West, with our freedoms, cannot comprehend what's going on in China. China cannot comprehend us. China is our number one enemy. Will China take us over? No. We have more ruthless, individualized, greedy, lustful, powerful people in the West who are never going to let China take over. They'll see China turn into a civil war, exactly like they did basically in USSR, breaking it up into pieces if necessary, and then going after them exactly like they're doing with the Putin election now, or like Barack Obama did with Netanyahu in Israel. We simply go in and we change the leadership if we can. It's going to be very difficult in China. It won't happen for quite some time. China is not going to win this war, folks. America shall prevail. The petrodollar will be transformed. But what it's going to be transformed into, I don't know that anyone knows at this moment. So, China, you got trumped by Trump. Thank you. Now, we don't have to do anything further with North Korea. Those sanctions alone will stop. His people are starving. They have no fresh water. He's killing his people over these missiles. They will kill him or the missiles will stop. thank you again for the Trump effect. And thank you, Trump, for being so bold and strong and putting America first at the United Nations, because it's the first time since George Sr. Bush said there will be a new world order that America has been placed first at the United Nations, though in fact we pay most of their bills. So thank you, Mr. Trump, for your efforts, and thank you for the Trump effect.